Pause for a moment and truly listen, not just to these words, but to the silence beneath them, because there is something within you that has been waiting not for more effort, not for more struggle, but for recognition. What if the shift you've been searching for isn't out there somewhere in the future, but is available to you right now, in this very breath? Tonight is not about learning something new. It's about remembering something powerful. And if you allow yourself to fully receive this, something within you will begin to change. There is a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, where everything begins to change. It is not when your circumstances improve, nor when opportunities suddenly appear. It is the moment you become aware. A simple shift in awareness marks the true beginning of transformation, because until you are aware, you are merely repeating patterns, living on autopilot, reacting to life instead of shaping it. Most people move through their days without ever questioning what they are thinking or feeling. They accept their reactions as natural, their beliefs as fixed, and their circumstances as final. But beneath all of this lies a deeper truth. What you consistently assume to be true about yourself and your life is what you experience. And if those assumptions are unconscious, then your life is being created without your deliberate choice. Awareness interrupts this cycle. It is the light that reveals what has been hidden. When you become aware of your inner dialogue, those quiet thoughts you repeat, those feelings you carry, you begin to see that they are not random, they are patterns, and those patterns are shaping your reality. This realization is not meant to burden you, it is meant to free you. Because once you see what you have been accepting as true, you are no longer bound by it. You are no longer a passive participant in your life. You become the observer, and from that position, you gain the power to choose. Choice is born from awareness. Without awareness, there is no choice, only reaction. But with awareness, you can pause. You can notice when an old thought arises, when a familiar feeling begins to take hold, and instead of following it automatically, you can gently step back and decide whether it serves you. This is where transformation begins, not in grand gestures, but in subtle shifts. You might notice a thought that says, "This never works out for me." Before awareness, you would accept it, feel discouraged, and continue the pattern. But with awareness, you recognize it as just a thought, not a fact. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can continue to believe it, or you can release it and choose a different assumption. This does not require force. It requires presence. You are not fighting your mind. You are observing it. And in that observation, something powerful happens. The thought loses its control over you. It no longer defines your state unless you allow it to. Awareness also brings clarity to your feelings. You begin to notice the emotional tones you carry throughout the day. Are you often tense, worried, doubtful, or are you calm, confident, at ease? These feelings are not just reactions to life, they are signals of the state you are occupying. And the state you occupy determines what you experience. So, as awareness deepens, you begin to see your life differently. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What am I accepting within that is being reflected here?" This shift alone changes everything. It moves you from victim to creator, from confusion to clarity. But awareness is not a one-time event. It is a practice, a gentle returning to the present moment again and again. Each time you notice your thoughts, each time you observe your feelings without judgment, you strengthen this awareness. And with that strength comes freedom. Freedom to choose differently, freedom to feel differently, freedom to become someone new. Because transformation does not begin when the world changes. It begins when you see yourself clearly enough to choose a new way of being. So do not underestimate the power of simply becoming aware. It may seem small, but it is the doorway to everything you seek. Once you step through it, you are no longer asleep to your own creation. You are awake. And from that awareness, your new reality begins. There is a principle operating in your life at every moment, quietly, consistently, without interruption. It does not pause, it does not question, and it does not discriminate. It simply reflects. This principle is the relationship between your inner state and your outer world. Whether you are aware of it or not, what you feel to be true within yourself is being expressed around you. Your inner state is not separate from your reality, it is the source of it. Most people have been conditioned to believe the opposite. They look at their circumstances and assume those circumstances are shaping how they feel. If life is going well, they feel secure. If challenges arise, they feel anxious or defeated. In this way, they live in a constant cycle of reaction, allowing the outer world to dictate their inner experience. But this is a reversal of the true order of creation. Your inner state comes first. It is the cause, not the effect. What you consistently feel, what you accept as true about yourself and your life, becomes the pattern through which your reality is formed. This does not mean that every passing emotion creates instant results, but the dominant state, the one you return to most often, impresses itself deeply and begins to take shape in your world. Think of your inner state as a lens through which you experience life. If that lens is colored by doubt, fear, or limitation, then everything you encounter will be filtered through it. Opportunities may appear, but you may not recognize them. Support may be present, but you may not trust it. Even success, when it comes, may feel temporary or undeserved. Not because life is lacking, but because your state cannot fully receive what does not align with it. On the other hand, when your inner state shifts, when you begin to feel secure, capable, and fulfilled, you start to perceive life differently. You notice possibilities where there were none before. You respond to situations with clarity instead of fear. You carry a quiet confidence that influences not only how you see the world, but how the world responds to you. This is not coincidence, it is correspondence. The outer world mirrors the inner condition. But here is where true understanding is required. Changing your inner state is not about forcing positive thoughts or denying what you currently see. It is about gently and consistently choosing a new way of being, a new identity, a new assumption about yourself. Ask yourself, what do I believe to be true about my life right now? Not what you hope is true, not what you wish were true, but what you actually feel deep down without effort. That is your current state, and that state is shaping everything you experience. If you wish to change your reality, you must begin there, not by trying to control the outer world, but by shifting the inner foundation from which it arises. This shift begins with awareness, but it deepens through feeling. You do not change your state by thinking differently for a moment. You change it by feeling differently consistently, feeling as though something is already true, even before it appears. If you desire stability, begin to feel secure now. If you desire success, begin to feel accomplished now. If you desire peace, begin to feel at ease now. Not because your circumstances demand it, but because you choose it. At first, it may feel unfamiliar, even unnatural. That is only because you are stepping out of an old state and into a new one. The mind may question it, the senses may deny it, but if you persist gently, returning to that chosen feeling again and again, it will begin to settle within you. And as it settles, it becomes natural. When it becomes natural, it becomes dominant. And when it becomes dominant, it must be expressed. This is how reality changes, not through force, but through alignment. You align yourself with a new state, and the world begins to reflect that alignment in ways you may not even anticipate. People respond differently, situations unfold differently, opportunities arise that match the version of you that you have become within. You do not need to manage every detail. You do not need to plan every step. The moment your inner state changes, the path reorganizes itself. This is why effort alone cannot produce lasting change. You can take action from a state of doubt and still struggle. But when action arises from a state of certainty, it carries a different quality. It is not driven by fear or urgency. It is guided by confidence and clarity. So the question is no longer, what do I need to do to change my life? The question becomes, who do I need to be within to experience the life I desire? Because once you become that person internally, the external world will have no choice but to follow. Your inner state is not just influencing your reality, it is creating it. And the moment you truly understand this, not just intellectually, but experientially, you realize that the power you have been seeking has always been within you, waiting for you to claim it. There is a pattern that quietly governs every transformation, yet it is often overlooked because it does not begin where most people are trained to look. Real change does not start in the visible world. It does not begin with circumstances rearranging, opportunities appearing, or conditions improving. It begins within subtly, silently, almost imperceptibly. And unless you understand this, you may miss the very moment your life starts to change. Most people are waiting for proof. They want to see something different before they allow themselves to feel different. They believe that once the outer world shifts, then they will feel confident, secure, or fulfilled. But this is not how transformation works. The outer world is always the last to change, not the first. The shift happens within first. It begins as a decision, a quiet inner movement, where you no longer agree with the version of yourself that feels limited or defined by past experiences. You may not announce it. You may not even fully understand it at first. But something within you says, I am no longer this. And in that moment, a new possibility opens. This shift is not dramatic. It does not come with fireworks or immediate evidence. In fact, it often feels so subtle that you might question whether anything has changed at all. But do not be deceived by its quiet nature. The most powerful changes are often the ones you cannot see at the beginning. Think of it like a seed planted beneath the soil. From the surface, nothing appears different. The ground looks the same, but beneath it, something is happening. Roots are forming, life is beginning. And in time, what was once invisible will break through and become undeniable. Your inner shift works in the same way. The moment you choose a new state, a new way of seeing yourself, a new feeling about your life, you have planted a seed, and that seed begins to grow, whether you are watching it or not. But here is where understanding becomes essential. If you keep digging it up to check its progress, you interrupt its growth. In other words, if you constantly look to the outer world for confirmation, you delay the very change you have begun. You must learn to trust the inner shift before it becomes visible. This requires a different kind of attention. Instead of focusing on what is happening around you, you begin to notice what is happening within you. Are you thinking differently, feeling differently, responding differently? These are the early signs of transformation, not external results, but internal changes. You may find that situations that once triggered you no longer have the same effect. You may feel a sense of calm where there was once anxiety. You may notice a quiet confidence replacing doubt. These are not small things. These are indicators that your state is changing. And as your state changes, your reality must follow. But it follows in its own time, in its own way. There is a natural unfolding that takes place, a sequence of events that bridges the inner shift with the outer expression. You do not need to control this process. In fact, trying to control it often creates resistance. Your role is not to force the outcome. Your role is to remain aligned with the shift you have made within. This means returning to that new state again and again, not out of effort, but out of recognition. You remind yourself of who you are becoming. You revisit the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You allow it to settle more deeply each time. At first, it may feel like you are stepping into it, but eventually it begins to feel like it is stepping into you. It becomes natural, familiar, effortless, and when it becomes your natural state, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. This is where patience becomes important. Not the kind of patience that waits passively, but the kind that trusts actively. You trust that what you have set in motion within will express itself without interference. You trust that the shift you felt was real, even if it is not yet visible. Because the truth is, by the time something appears in your outer world, it has already been established within you for some time. The visible is always the result, never the beginning. So stop looking outside for the first sign of change. Instead, honor the shift that has already occurred within you. Nurture it, stay with it, let it deepen, because once the shift happens within, the rest is inevitable. It is only a matter of time before what you have become inside becomes what you experience outside. There is a habit so deeply ingrained in the human mind that it feels almost natural to chase, to pursue, to strive, to run after what seems just out of reach. From a young age, you are taught that if you want something, you must go after it, work harder for it, push yourself toward it. And while action has its place, there is a deeper truth that is often missed. What you chase tends to remain ahead of you. Why? Because in the very act of chasing, you are affirming that what you desire is not yet yours. You are identifying as the one who does not have it. And that identity shapes your experience. To truly transform your reality, there must be a shift, not in what you do, but in who you are being. You must move from chasing your desire to becoming the version of yourself who already has it. This is not a surface level change. It is a complete inner reorientation. Ask yourself honestly, when you are chasing something, how do you feel? There is often urgency, pressure, even a subtle sense of lack. You feel as though something is missing and you are trying to fill that gap. But when something is already yours, do you chase it? Of course not. You live with it. You embody it. You take it for granted in the most natural way. This is the difference. To become instead of chase means you assume the identity of the one who already is, already has, already lives the reality you desire. Not in imagination alone, but in feeling, in your inner state. If you desire success, you do not chase success. You become successful in your state of being. You feel the certainty, the stability, the quiet confidence that would naturally exist if success were already a part of your life. If you desire love, you do not chase love. You become the version of yourself who is already loved, already valued, already complete. This shift may seem subtle, but it changes everything because your identity determines your perception, your reactions, and ultimately your experiences. When you identify as someone who is lacking, you will notice what is missing. You will interpret events through that lens. But when you identify as someone who is fulfilled, your entire relationship with life changes. You no longer seek validation, you express it. You no longer wait for opportunities. You recognize them. You no longer doubt your place. You move with quiet certainty. And from that state, your actions change naturally. You do not force yourself to behave differently. You simply begin to act in alignment with who you have become within. Your decisions carry a different energy. Your presence feels different. And this difference is felt by the world around you. But here is where many misunderstand. Becoming is not pretending. It is not putting on a mask or forcing yourself to act in ways that feel false. True becoming is inward. It is the acceptance of a new state as real. It is the willingness to feel differently about yourself even when the outer world has not yet changed. At first, this may feel unfamiliar. You may catch yourself slipping back into old patterns of thought, old emotional reactions. This is natural. You are moving from one state to another, and the old state has momentum. But each time you become aware of it, you have a choice. Do you return to the old identity, or do you step back into the new one? This is where consistency matters. You gently remind yourself of who you are now choosing to be. You revisit the feeling of already having, already being, not with strain, but with ease. And over time, this new state begins to feel more natural than the old one. It becomes your baseline. And once it becomes your baseline, the need to chase disappears entirely because you are no longer trying to get somewhere. You are already there. From this place, life begins to respond differently. Not because you forced it, but because you changed the version of yourself that is experiencing it. The world mirrors who you are, not what you want. So when you become the one who has, the having must follow. You may still take action, but it will no longer feel like chasing. It will feel like expression. It will feel aligned, purposeful, even effortless. You will move not out of lack, but out of completeness. And that is where true power lies. So let go of the need to chase. Let go of the belief that what you desire is outside of you. Turn inward and ask yourself, who would I be if it were already true? Then become that fully, quietly, consistently. Because the moment you truly become it within, you will realize there is nothing left to chase. It is already yours. There is a rhythm to transformation that many overlook, not because it is complex, but because it is simple. It does not demand force, struggle, or constant effort. It asks only for one thing, your willingness to return, again and again, gently, consistently, without frustration. To return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, until it no longer feels like something you are doing, but something you are. In the beginning, the feeling may feel distant. You may be able to touch it for a moment, perhaps in quiet reflection, perhaps when you close your eyes and imagine your desire as already real. In that moment, it feels vivid, convincing, even natural. But then the moment passes. You open your eyes, you return to your day, and the outer world seems unchanged. Slowly, almost without noticing, you slip back into old feelings, doubt, uncertainty, waiting. This is where the true work begins, not in achieving the feeling once, but in returning to it. Most people misunderstand this stage. They believe that if the feeling does not stay immediately, something has gone wrong. But nothing has gone wrong. You are simply transitioning from an old state to a new one, and the old state has been practiced for far longer. It has familiarity, momentum, and habit behind it. The new feeling, though powerful, is still new, and what is new must be revisited to become natural. So instead of becoming discouraged when you drift, you simply notice it. You become aware that you have returned to an old pattern, and without judgment, without resistance, you guide yourself back to the feeling of fulfillment, back to the quiet knowing that what you desire is already yours. This returning is not a failure, it is the process. Each time you return, you are strengthening the new state. Each time you feel it again, even briefly, you are impressing it more deeply within yourself. It is like learning a new language. At first, it feels unfamiliar. You may forget words, hesitate, stumble. But with repetition, it becomes easier, more fluid, until one day you are no longer translating. You are simply speaking. The same is true here. At first, you step into the feeling intentionally. You choose it. You remind yourself of it. But over time, something shifts. The feeling begins to arise on its own. It becomes your natural response, your default state. You no longer have to reach for it. It is already there. And when it becomes natural, it becomes powerful. Because what feels natural to you is what you accept as true. And what you accept as true is what shapes your reality. This is why returning to the feeling is so important, not to force it, but to familiarize yourself with it until it becomes who you are. There will be moments when the outer world challenges you. Situations may arise that seem to contradict your inner state. Old patterns may try to reassert themselves. In those moments, it is easy to believe that nothing has changed. But this is where your awareness and your commitment come into play. You do not need to fight the outer world. You do not need to prove anything. You simply return. You return to the feeling, even if it is for a few seconds, even if it feels faint, even if it seems like nothing is happening, because something is happening. Every return is a reinforcement. Every moment spent in that feeling is a step deeper into the new state. And with each step, the old state loses its hold. It becomes less convincing, less dominant, until eventually it fades. This is not about perfection. You do not need to maintain the feeling every second of the day. What matters is your willingness to come back to it, to choose it again, to dwell in it more often than not. Over time, the balance shifts. What was once unfamiliar becomes familiar. What once required effort becomes effortless. What once felt imagined becomes real. And when that happens, the outer world begins to reflect it. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but naturally, as though it could never have been any other way. This is the quiet power of returning. It does not demand that you change everything at once. It asks only that you remain gently committed to the state you have chosen, that you trust the process even when it is unseen, that you continue to feel what you wish to experience, regardless of what is currently visible. So do not worry if the feeling fades. Do not question yourself when you drift. Simply return again and again until the feeling no longer feels like something you visit, but something you live in. Because once it becomes your natural state, it is no longer a practice, it is your reality. Now you see it, the shift was never outside of you. It was always within your reach, waiting for your awareness, waiting for your acceptance. The moment you choose a new inner state, the moment you feel differently about yourself and your life, everything begins to move quietly, invisibly, but inevitably. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to chase anything. Just remain loyal to that subtle shift you felt within. Let it grow. Let it become natural. And in time, you will look around and realize your world has changed because you did. Thank you for being present, for listening deeply, and for allowing yourself to experience this moment. If something resonated within you, don't let it fade. Carry it with you. Return to it. Strengthen it. Live from it. Until next time, trust the shift and let it guide you forward.